Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're watching from. This is the Ask Nancy live stream. Hi, everyone. I'm Nancy Berger. I do these once a month. As you know, I invite cool people to talk about cool stuff. And today I'm joined by my friend and colleague, Sarah Mann, and we are going to talk about instincts and fluency. And if that doesn't grab your attention, well, I don't know. So if you're watching live, welcome. If you're watching the replay, welcome. We are Sarah Mann, my guest today. Straight shooting, no BS. That's one of my favorite things to say about Sarah, and that's really true. But she's a coach for, successful people that inside still struggle with all of those, voices and doubts, and which a lot of us do. And we're going to talk today about trusting your instincts and how to get more fluent as a leader. She has a leadership fluency model, which is really intriguing. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to know that I'm cool.
I only have cool people on.
Okay, great.
Tell us a little bit more about what you do, who you do it for, and why you do it.
Yes, I think I'm going to start with the why, Nancy, because it really does drive everything that I do. I spent a long time in-house before I started my own business. And when I left, in hindsight, what I could see clearly that I hadn't seen when I was in it was this through line of my career of loneliness, and that I often felt alone, that I didn't necessarily have people to go to for help, or maybe I was afraid to ask for help because I thought it would mean that I looked like I didn't know what I was doing.
Okay, so tell us, you were in corporate, and in what capacity? I want the listeners.
My background is a mix of human resources, marketing, and operations. Most of that is in corporate, large multinational organizations, and I had about a 10-year stint in a youth marketing agency. So we were running marketing promotions for consumer brands that were targeting a 12 to 24-year-old age range.
So you were surrounded by people and lonely.
I was surrounded. Yeah, my whole career I've been. I've always had phenomenal colleagues. So it's not necessarily about the people that are around you. It's more about, for me, how I was interacting or not interacting, and also not having necessarily a lot of tools or strategies to help me navigate when things got difficult and challenging. And so for me, that really is my goal, is to support leaders primarily in organizations who are trying to navigate competing priorities and complexities, and things are particularly complex in the world that we are in today for a variety of reasons. To offer them those tools and strategies, and to give them a glimpse, if you will, or not a glimpse, but maybe give them an opportunity to open the aperture on the lens, so that they have some ways to reframe the way they might be looking at things, or have some different tools to employ when things get tough.
Let's pause on that, because reframing is so important in the work I do, as you know. And I've heard you say before, I think, it's an inside job, right? It is an inside job. Starts on the inside. Even the lonely piece really does. So, okay, so great. Let's spring forward from that. Tell us about, if you would, as a coach and doing the work you do, what's the first step? Like, for the people watching and listening, what's the first step in knowing, how can they know whether they need to reframe, or if some of those challenges they're perceiving really start on the inside?
Such a good question. Have you thought about coaching as a career, Nancy? So it's such a good question. And I think there's not one answer. There's not a single, I think maybe my answer isn't, see if I can pull this all together. There's no single right answer.
Yeah.
Which is also my answer, because everybody's looking for advice or the right way to do things. And I don't believe in a one size fits all, because everybody's different, and our skill sets are different, and the environments that we're operating are different, and our lived experiences are different.
Totally. Yeah.
So there's no singular place to say, oh, start here, and that applies across the board.
Right. It was an unfair
Happy.
question. It was an
But,
unfair question. What I
well,
should have asked, how I should have asked it is this, Sarah, like in your experience, like can you think
yeah.
of a couple of cases where maybe even different a couple of cases you can cite of your in your own
Mm,
practice
yeah.
where there were different ways that people kind of got there. Do you know what I mean? That's
Yes.
a fairer way to ask it.
Yes. And I still have an answer to the first question,
Oh,
which I think applies to the second question as well, because a lot of times, and I'm assuming you see this in your coaching practice as well, people come into coaching and they're looking for advice. I need advice on how to do X, Y, and Z. And as a coach, I don't offer advice because I'm not living your life. And so what
right.
I want to do is help excavate, if you will,
Yeah.
what are, what's under the hood, the thoughts, feelings, emotions, beliefs, values,
Yeah.
narratives, all of those things, because that internal landscape is really what drives our external behaviors.
Mhm.
So if people are looking for that first step, I think, again, maybe in a generalized way, but a first step is, are you expecting other people to change in order for you to show up in the world the way that you want to show up?
No, that's a great question.
So people will say, well, because I'll say, well, we're talking with a client, what do you want? What's your best outcome in this scenario?
Right.
I want them to respect me. I want them to hear me. Well, those are nice to haves, and we don't have any control over what somebody else
Right.
does.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you feel good about how you showed up in the moment and not have all of your uh, validation and assessment of doing a good job based on somebody respects me, or I think somebody respects me, or I think somebody hurt me.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's the first place to start, I would say.
What are you attaching meaning to, and
Mhm.
what can you control? What are you in charge of? And are you taking ownership of that? That's a
Yes.
great, yeah, that's a
Yeah.
great way to start. So good. So tell us about experiences you had as a coach and what you've kind of maybe a case study or two.
Oh my gosh.
Not really, but just like if you can think
There's
of
so many.
not a full case study. Yeah,
Yeah.
like if you can just something
The
pops
high
out like,
level. Yeah.
yeah, this happened with
Yeah.
this client, and it was kind of an illustration of that point.
Yeah. So there's a number. So I had a client who had been promoted into a role that she was particularly excited about. And then about 9 months later was reassigned back to her old role.
Yikes.
And that was done in a way where she wasn't offered a lot of explanation or reasoning and whatnot. So there was a lot of emotion
Yeah.
behind this. And so for coaching, really what we were focused on was executive presence and building strategic relationships at the executive level, because she had so many executive interactions in the role that she was moved back to.
Did she
Um,
feel that that was what was holding her back in being successful in the role that she had for a while?
she was confused about what was holding her back. I think the only thing that she felt reasonably clear about was that some of the executive interactions were challenging.
Yeah.
And so those were blocking her. And some of
Mhm.
those were, just part of normal organizational stuff that transpires in terms of differing personalities and the complexities that we talked about a few moments ago. And some
Yeah.
of it was about her and how she was showing up. And so what came out of all of that for her, there are not a lot of things that came out of all of that for her. But I think what she would say are the biggest things were, one, she was taking everything personally.
Wow.
So, and when we walk around feeling hurt and just like there's a target on us, for most people, it changes how we show up in the world. So she was
Hmm.
going into every meeting like geared up for battle. And so people were sensing that from her. And so it was, so when she was able to take a step back, focus on her values, what was important to her, how she wanted to show up in the world, realize that a lot of the things that were transpiring were cultural in the organization and not specific to her or about her. That in and of itself calmed her nervous system,
Hmm.
gave her a lot more presence in the moment because she wasn't geared up and holding herself really tightly for battle,
Yeah.
and helped smooth the way for some of those relationships. There's a whole lot
Okay.
more to that. Wait, there was a whole lot more that came out of that coaching,
I'm
but I would say if I
sure.
had to
Yeah, we're
bring it
trying
down
to
to
kind
one
of
thing,
give, yeah, small chunks that
encapsulate.
people can
Yeah.
digest. But I have a follow-up question there because, we talk about instincts and trusting your instincts, and I want to get your way in on this because sometimes I have to kind of walk this line with clients.
Mhm.
I say trust your instincts. We say trust your instincts, but sometimes we write stories about what's happening to us, and we may
Mhm.
think it's our instinct telling us that this is what's going on. Like they don't
Yeah.
think I have executive presence, for example.
Yeah.
But it may be a story that's based on a fictional narrative. How do you like? How can people know whether it's their instinct they should trust, or if they're
Mm.
writing a story that may not be true?
That's such a good question. There's so many stories. I don't know about you, but I listen, I have to question my own, like, is that a
Absolutely.
story? And I say it all the time to clients too. I like, okay, that could be a story.
Yeah.
Let's explore that.
Yeah.
So I think the easiest way in the moment, or if somebody likes to do any type of reflection or journaling or whatnot, is to take a step back and look at the story and see which elements of that story are factual and
Yep.
which ones just might be an assumption.
Yeah.
And most of the time, or oftentimes, all of us are human nature. We make a lot of assumptions.
Oh my gosh. We're meaning makers. We
We
spend all day making meaning out of things. And if we don't have
yeah,
facts, we just fill in the
we just
blank
make
with
them up.
fiction. Yeah.
Yeah, which is why in organizations, when organizations go through large scale change, they have these really elaborate, hopefully elaborate communication plans, which when you're in the middle of it, sometimes, honestly, in my mind anyway, sometimes feel like overkill. Oh my gosh, do we have to talk about this again?
Yeah.
But in the absence of information, people make up their own answers. So the
Yeah.
answer is, yeah, we do need to talk about this again. And so as individuals, and this was part of the loneliness, quite honestly, for me, was I spent a lot of time in my head with stories and didn't
Hmm.
have an outlet to validate that the stories were manufactured by
Yeah.
me or there was any legitimacy to them or to any pieces of them that then would give me a nugget of something that I could focus on in my own development.
And when you do that, like the moment you question the story and you make a different choice, if there's
Mhm.
no fact to back it up and you make a different choice and you start believing that story, you have as much of a chance of it being true. I
Yeah,
mean, and then you
right.
feel better. It's just like this crazy cycle we all go through. But okay, so back to
Wait, can we go back to the one, because you just said something really key, which was choice.
yeah.
And I think there are so many people out there, and I'll say leaders. And when I say leader, sometimes that's leader with a big L, capital L, and sometimes that's leader with a lowercase l,
I'm with
because
you.
I think
Yep.
so many of us are leaders, regardless of
Yep.
whether or not you have, say, a lead other people.
Yeah.
But it is a choice. It's absolutely a choice. I get to choose every day how I show up.
Yeah.
And a lot of times clients will say, uh, well, it would be better if only so and so would, or like the what ifs and the if onlys, or I'll be happy when, are all, um, well, I'm no BS. So it's their excuses.
Yeah.
about why you can't show up today as the leader that you want to be, aligned with your own personal values. But it's
Mhm.
absolutely a choice.
It
I'm
totally
sorry,
is.
got on my little
No, it is.
soapbox there.
And I'm bagging what you're mowing because
Are you picking up what I'm putting down?
it's all a choice. And I think I don't know if this was a social media caption or what it was, but it really resonated with me. It's like what's getting you in your way is the work you're putting aside right now.
Mm,
You know,
yeah,
like we don't really, it's hard to face into that stuff. But
it's
that's
so
why
hard.
it's so hard. And sometimes I just lean back on, neuroscience. It's like, yes, it's hard, but it gets easier when you start
When you
making
do it. I think I lost you.
there.
I am. Are you? So I'm not sure which of us froze. And so I'm not sure which of us is still live. So in case it's me, Nancy was talking about doing the work that's in front of you. So I'll just pick up that ball and run with it. And it
Have
really
you,
is. Oh, are you there? Okay, so Nancy looks like she has left the live stream. So I'm going to keep on going here. It is so hard to do that work. And what I have found, I know certainly in my own life, and then also in lives of clients, as humans, so much. Oh, I'm going without you.
good. Keep
I'm just
going.
answering the
That's
question.
good.
So what you said, Nancy, was
Tech glitches, it happens. Keep going.
but what you said was, it's hard to do the work that's in front of you. And so I think it's human nature to want to kick the can down the road because we don't like to feel uncomfortable. And
Go
so,
ahead. I'm here.
well, so and so's going on vacation. I'm not going to have that
I know
difficult
this has never
conversation with
happened.
them
This is so
right
weird.
now.
Okay.
Are you there? So do the hard work. Do what's in front of you, even if it feels uncomfortable. And it is, as Nancy said, the neuroscience of it, like um, going to the gym and working a new muscle. It gets easier when you build those new neural connections. Nancy, are you back? And it looks like we lost Nancy again. So, never had this happen. I could just riff. I'm happy to riff. Not sure what Nancy has on tap for questions, though.
Yeah, please.
You want me to riff? Okay, I'm going to riff because one of the things I know that Nancy and I were going to talk about today was leadership fluency, which is my leadership model. And first, let's talk about what is fluency. So if we take a non-work example, let's talk about lasagna. If, for instance, you love to make lasagna and you can make it with your eyes closed without checking for a recipe to make sure you have all the ingredients, and you're able to ad lib in the moment with the ingredients that you have on hand, and it just feels very easy and natural to you to make that lasagna without a recipe, that's fluency. And that's what I wish for everybody's leadership. That is not what I see with clients, because so many of us are stuck in this cycle of overthinking and overfunctioning and overworking and exhaustion and burnout, because we're still looking for the external validation and the pat on the back and all of those things. So I created a leadership model. Nancy, are you there? I feel like I just got kicked out of the live stream. So I created a leadership model called Leadership Fluency. There are 5 anchors to it. And I'm from the Northeast, so we have nor'easters come through all the time. And so if you think about a massive storm, whether it's snow, wind, rain, whatever it is, and we've got these massive, massive trees, and they might sway in the wind, and maybe a little twig or branch will break off, but mostly they are sturdy and solid because they have deep roots. And so that's what I wish for your leadership, so that you aren't spending your time second guessing and overthinking and overfunctioning and overworking, and that you've got that fluency instead. So we look at identity. Who do you want to be? We were just chatting about this. How you want to show up in the world is a choice. And so what kind of leader do you want to be? And go do that thing. And so a lot of times clients will say, well, I don't know what to do in this situation. And I invite people to think about, well, who do you want to be? Because when you know who you want to be, then the what often follows naturally after that, which is very closely related to values. If you haven't done a values exercise ever, I really invite you and encourage you and support you in doing that, because it's really helpful to know what you stand for. And also values will act as your guardrails. If you're stuck in terms of making a decision or what makes most sense, values really help provide that stability and beacon for you, if you will. When we talk about well-being, I'm a stickler for well-being: mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and financial. Again, one size doesn't fit all, so I don't know what each individual needs to do in terms of supporting their well-being. But there's this idea of being resourced and resourcing yourself as a leader, because if your tank is on empty, you're really not helping anybody else. You're not coming from a position of strength to help other people. So it's that old adage of put your own oxygen mask on first. Then we look at connection. So who's in your network, internally, externally? How do they help you with goal achievement? And that's not even about, that's not a manipulative thing in terms of how are you using people, but we live in a relationship economy, and work gets done with and through other people. And particularly now, given what's going on in the world, we need connection and community. I know for myself, I didn't have a network early on. And so I didn't have people to lean into. And that was really what fueled a lot of that loneliness that I talked about earlier. So this idea of connection with other people, both in terms of making the work easier and increasing productivity, and also staving off that loneliness, is huge right now. The statistics on loneliness in the workplace right now are huge. And then the last piece is mindset, which I think we've touched upon a little bit here and there. Nancy, it looks like you're back. Maybe not. So we've touched on mindset.
I wasn't sure, so I didn't want to say anything.
Yeah, it looks like you're back. So we've touched upon mindset a little bit, right? In terms of it's a choice. There's lots of different ways that you can choose to view a situation.
We talk about it all the time. Yeah.
And if we're in a story,
Yeah.
the mindset that we are in is usually not so great. So that, in a nutshell, is leadership fluency. And when you focus on those various anchors, you have an opportunity to shift your leadership.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. I can. I could.
Am I back?
Yes.
Am I back?
Yep.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So Sarah, you are a rock star. Like
Oh, we lost you again.
Before this happens again. Yeah. Okay.
Now she's back. Okay. So in case we lose Nancy again. So
what I want you to do right now,
I'm going to tell people how to find me.
Is tell people how to get in touch with you if they want to learn more quickly before this all falls apart.
Okay. So my website is Sarah, SARAH-Mann, MANN.com. And my email is sarah@sarah-mann.com. and I am also on LinkedIn, Sarah L. Mann, and feel free to check me out. I do a weekly note to my email audience where we talk about leadership fluency and leadership in general and communication and real-time practical suggestions for leaders. And occasionally my dog will make a cameo as well. So feel free to head on over to my website and sign up for the emails if you're interested.
All right. Am I here?
Yeah.
Oh,
This
gosh.
is like
Okay.
leadership fluency in
So
action.
we're going to wrap this because
Okay.
this is really testing. I'm sure it's testing mine. But Sarah Mann, thank you for joining. It was a great one-way conversation for most of this, but I'm sure everybody's going to learn something from this. And we're just going to have you back and do it again. That's all. So thank you.
Sounds
And
good.
to everybody that was watching, if you haven't left already, thank you for joining. And we will be back in a month for another Ask Nancy. If you have any questions in the meantime or want more information, feel free to reach out to me or to Sarah directly. Thank you so much. And see you next time. All right.